we're back like the plague. Here's our friend Michael Riedel, Ralph Romeo. What's happening, Michael?
I don't know if introducing us like the plague is the best way to gin up interest in this podcast, Ralph. But
It's my
we were
way of.
right. We were talking just before we went on the air, as we used to say back in old media days, about the expression "tookus" that your grandmother used, and
Yes.
I have to say that was in that last debate with Cuomo and Curtis and Mamdani when Cuomo said, Donald Trump, he said this to Mamdani, he said, Donald Trump will knock him on his tuchus. And I thought, this is why Cuomo has no shot. Because
Yes.
he dated him in that one phrase that your Italian mother used in the 1950s, into the 60s, into the 70s. That one phrase you thought, this is why the guy is out of touch. Who
Yes.
says tuchus? Who says tuchus anymore?
Well, if you go to the nursing home
Well,
and
okay.
you have a bunch of Italians there, you can bet the word "tookus" is being thrown around. But
That's
that's
true.
about all. That's about all.
That's right. So great. So Cuomo has the nursing home vote. That's what you're saying. He's in.
Yes, he's got it. He's got it under wraps. No
You
doubt
know,
about it.
it's interesting though the choice of phrasing. Now, I make nothing for Mamdani because I think that he uses a lot of empty, nothing phrases. Uh, Basically telling everybody you can get things for free, and I'm young. And what I really seriously objected to in that debate was when you talk about September 11th, that horrible day that you and I both lived through in New York, and he flips it and turns it on his aunt who was wearing the hijab on the subway and she was afraid to take the subway. I mean, no thought whatsoever for the 3,500 people killed, Christians, Jews, and Muslims, by the way, who were killed by Islamic terrorists. And he turns it into his aunt's personal story about being afraid to take the subway because she wore a hijab. That's all he takes away from September 11th. And that is what he takes away from it. Because, Ralph, if you go back and you look at the college he went to, Bodwin, I think at Bodwin, what do they call it? Up there in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, up in Maine, I think it is.
Where is it, honey? Maine, Bodwin. Here's a
Bodwin.
Maine. Here's a Maine person here. Bodwin. Do you know? It's not important. Go ahead.
Anyway, but
The
what
college.
right. But what those kids learned after September 11th, and there were college professors who were, I hope they were fired, I don't know, who said the United States deserves this. The United States has had this coming for our colonialism, our imperialism, our racism. That is what Donnie fundamentally believes. He thinks the United States had it coming to us on September 11th, and all he can use September 11th for is to say it just unleashed Islamophobia on my aunt.
Politically speaking, his handlers had to say to him after that remark, that was stupid. That was just a dumb remark. Even if you think that, you dope, you don't say it because that's going to be held against him. But of course, he's a shoo-in. He
Totally.
has a groundswell of support, Michael, like I've never seen before. They
Yeah.
are just, and no matter when they take the poll, every 3 weeks you hear a new poll and you hear it come out, the numbers stay exactly the same.
Yeah. He's got a 10% lead on Cuomo right now. I mean, who's going to knock who on his tuchus? Mamdani is going to knock Cuomo on his tuchus.
All day you're going to be saying "tookus" now. You know that.
It's got it in my head. Look, there are a couple of things going on here. One, I do think that young people who are turning out for him, young people they're socialist. I think the conservative kids who would go for somebody like Charlie Kirk, I don't think they live in New York City. Okay. They live in Texas. They live
Mm-hmm.
in Florida, where we both are right now. They live in red states. If you're in a blue state, the young people are socialists. They don't know the history of socialism. They don't know that socialism ultimately leads to Stalin, because you can never order the society perfectly where the means of production are distributed equally, because somebody has to decide how they get distributed. And that's the person who will
Yeah.
ultimately have the power. But the kids don't know that. So they're socialist. There is a flirtation with socialism, verging, I would say, on communism going on here. And the other important thing is Mainstream media outlets like the New York Times, they see Mamdani as the person who can carry a message that they have fundamentally believed for a long time, that democratic socialism, European style, is the way to go. And that's why when you have the young people for him and you have the New York Times readership, which is vast in the city of New York, that's why you can't beat him.
Well, the radio station that we know, the 50,000-watt juggernaut, they are falling over themselves to back Cuomo now, where in the past, Cuomo was a killer. Cuomo was the guy in the nursing home scam and the whole works with the poor people dying. They think that Cuomo would be the lesser of the evils, and now they're running to back him. But it's when is the election? Tuesday? What
Yeah,
what's gonna change within the course of time? Curtis
nothing.
is not backing out. He's burned his bridges at WABC. The hosts are turning against him, every single one saying terrible, nefarious comments about our friend Curtis. I mean, I
Well,
think Curtis is, but no, but they're delving into his past, Michael. They're playing down and dirty politics with the guy because they're trying to coerce him to back out. Even now, at this stage, they want him to back out.
I would have to say, and I just cast my vote for Curtis, and I am incredibly fond of Curtis. I think he is a great New Yorker, and I actually think he would be a fascinating mayor. He is what Donald Trump is doing right now. He would disrupt everything. It would be wild and crazy, but horses and cats would be safe. But I think in some ways we need someone like Curtis. I have to say, and at the risk of never getting a job at WABC, which is probably not in the cards for me, I really find there's something, what's the word, ungentlemanly about going after someone who has worked for you so loyally for all those years and having your friends turn on you and dig up your past and throw stuff that, listen, Curtis has had a colorful existence, shall we say. It would never occur to me if I were a radio host at WABC to dig into Curtis's past and try to embarrass him, try to mock him, and ridicule him. We know what the man stands for. He was a loyal employee of that station. He brought them a lot of ratings and a lot of money over the years. So I just find it a little unseemly that they're doing this to him. I really do.
Why would a 72-year-old man have any idea that he could become mayor at this particular time? You got the young guy, 35, 34 years old, 33 years old, who's captured the whole city like never before. Why would an old man, I mean, I'm almost there, 72 years old, want this terrible, terrible baggage being just thrown out there for everybody to consume. He'll never be the same again. Is he going to go to OR now when he goes back to his radio gig? Is he going to go to The Answer? Where's he going?
Well, I mean, when you say he's old, I mean, have you looked at the age of Donald Trump? I mean,
Yeah,
he's
but
pushing
that,
80.
and that's, but it's funny when you go up against a 33-year-old in a young city, because face it, Michael, New York City is a young city. When I taught acting in that city, the young actors, they ruled the whole city. They were 25 years old and they were running fancy free. This one's from Texas, this one's from Kansas. They weren't dyed in the wool New Yorkers, but they thought New York was their playground. These are the guys or the people, not the guys, the people that are supporting him, and they're actually going to go out to vote this time. Do you think the young people will turn out to vote in the numbers they expect?
I do. Absolutely, yeah. Because the young people, they're running footloose and fancy free, but let's face it, they're living with 17 people in a walk up somewhere in Queens where I've never been, and they're working as baristas and bartenders and waiters, but they're unhappy with their lot and they fundamentally believe that they are owed something. This is what the young people, this is where they get it wrong now, and this is where I hope they will wise up and learn as life kicks them around a bit. But they have a sense of entitlement that I am owed an apartment that I really want to live in. I don't want to have a lot of roommates. I don't want to struggle to be an actor. I'm owed the job of being an actor, of being a writer. I don't want to work for it, Ralph. I don't want to have to really put myself out there. I don't want to have to face rejection. I don't want to have to take jobs I don't want. I am owed something. Mamdani is the person who comes to them and says, I'm going to give it to you.
He grins. He has always a beautiful smile. Did you see him? Beautiful smile. And this trend of everybody having a beard when they're in the office, I can't stand that. That's my personal kind of quirk, but I can't stand this beard. I think a politician with facial hair is not to be trusted. That was the old way of thinking because they and our vice president has himself a beard. I know I'm going
Where are
way
you going? Well, let me
off,
show you
but
something.
I just can't stand this whole idea that this is the face of the young person in New York City, and here's the guy who's going to lead us forward. Everything for free, as you mentioned before. I mean, come on. Are we that naive to think that this is the way things go? Once he gets in office, Michael, it's going to be a whole different kettle of fish. Is he
Right,
going to
but
be able to accomplish all these things? How is he going to get the money to make everything free? Trains, buses, etc.
you know what? You can borrow till the cows come home until you go into the 70s morass, which is what happened in New York City. New York City in the 30s during the New Deal, LaGuardia, Roosevelt, they were everybody gets something, right? And if you earn enough money, if the city makes enough money and you have the rich taxpayers, the Wall Street people still here, you can find the money or you borrow the money until you can't anymore. And I think we're on the precipice of not being able to borrow the money. And I got to remember, there was a time, Ralph, and you and I are old enough to remember this. Yeah, taxes were high in New York City. City was, not great in the 70s and the 80s. But if you were an actor, if you were a media person, if you were like me, you went to Columbia, where else in the world did you want to be? You had nothing to
It
compare
was
it to.
center of the universe.
Absolutely. You know what? The universe has no center now. You can be anywhere. You and I are doing this radio show talking about New York City from our houses in Florida.
Yeah,
You can
you're
do
so
it.
right about that.
You know,
We had to go. I used to come to from New Jersey to New York. That's where it was at, as they used to
absolutely.
say. That's where, and I could not be an actor. I could not pursue this craft without being in New York. Now, wherever you are, I checked out the landscape here in Florida. Not bad. They have good culture in Florida, believe it or not.
They do. I'm in Sarasota. There's the opera. There's the ballet. But to my point, though, the notion that Wall Street. I remember, God, I think it was Mayor Ed Koch when in the 70s, the dark days, and he was talking about the Wall Street people were saying you got to save the city, this, that, and the other thing. And Koch said, "I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it." He said, "But where are you going to go? Where is Wall Street going to go? New Jersey? Well, you know what? They went to New Jersey. You can have your multi-billion-dollar hedge fund trading from anywhere in the world now. Anywhere in the world. You could not do that back in the day. And Wall Street, and I know the kids, all the kids who want everything for free, and they hate capitalism, they hate Wall Street. Who do they think is going to pay for everything for free? It's the people, the Wall Street guys who are still here, who are making the big bucks, who are going to pay the Mamdani taxes of 18.5%. They're going to pay for the kids who don't want to be baristas, who want to be actors.
But I have to tell you, New York will not fall apart. It's just not going to collapse. It's going to survive. You just bear with it. It's going to survive. People are just so, just a doomsday attitude that if this guy gets in, they're selling their souls just to prevent this guy from not getting in. You're
Well, you mean
giving him far too much credit than don't you think he's getting more credit than he deserves?
yes, I do. I mean, the doomsday people really are there at WABC, and I really have no brief for what they're doing to Curtis.
And it's
But
not just ABC, Michael. I mean, I'm talking about across the board.
yeah, but I would say that I agree with you that the city's not going to fall apart today or tomorrow, even if Mamdani is elected. But if you go back in time, Ralph, let's say that Dinkins had been reelected and Giuliani had not been elected in what, 92, I guess it was.
Hmm.
Would the city have done as well under a second term of Dinkins as it then did under two terms of Rudy Giuliani? I mean, there's something to be said for the man. There is something to be said for the person who sets the tone, who sets the direction of the city. And make no mistake, Mamdani, I still can't pronounce his name, but knock me on
You're there. You're there. You're close.
almost there, right? Make no mistake, he is setting the tone, and the tone which has been turned up by De Blasio, okay?
Mm,
By Bill de Blasio, who said, "We can shift things and we can go farther to the left." And the Democrats of New York City, they saw Hillary Clinton, who tried to be moderate, lose. They saw Kamala Harris, who tried to be nothing, lose. They are Bernie Sanders people, and they want to give the Bernie Sanders they want to go for the Bernie Sanders experiment of democratic socialism. And Mamdani is the young person who can do that. That's why they're behind him.
De Blasio, you're right. De Blasio just destroyed the city. There was nothing wrong with the city. When he
No,
entered office, there was nothing wrong, but he had to find something wrong. And he started with the cops. And you
yep,
mentioned last week how they turned their back.
yep.
The cops are actually, now I hate to say that the cops are this vindictive, but it does happen. If the cops are dissatisfied with the mayor, Michael, if they just, let's put it this way, they despise the mayor, which I think they will. If you see trouble, the cops are going to walk right by in many cases. I'm telling you, they do that just for spite.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made the point last week. I talked to my old friend Bill Bratton about this. He said the easiest thing for a cop to do is to do nothing. The
Mm,
cop will not get in trouble for not leaving his car. The cop gets in
yeah.
trouble when he leaves the car to stop something. If he stops and frisks somebody, then somebody can take a camera out and say, "Oh, he threw the black man up against the wall. That's racist."
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens. How about the government shutdown? Now, to me, the one thing that's really interesting, the SNAP program is being halted. I don't know if it happened yet, but it's about to happen. And people are not going to get their food cards, their food stamps. They used to call them food stamps. And they're saying that we're not going to be without food. We are going to go into these food stores and take what we want. You're not going to deprive myself, my family of any kind of food. So you government, you better get on the stick and get back on top of things because we're just going to steal. If you don't hand out those cards and those cards are no good anymore, we're going to steal. What's your take?
Well, I guess when Curtis loses the election and can't go back to WABC, he can lead the revolution of people just stealing food because he won't have any income or a job. Um, I think I think Trump needs to do a deal with the Democrats and get the government back up and running again. He's showed them that, I haven't really seen the polls. Maybe you've looked closely. I don't really blame Trump for the government shutdown. And the
Mm.
funny thing is, I mean, a lot of us, I don't know about you, but I've not really felt the shutdown. Most
No,
people don't really feel the shutdown, which does tell you that you can make fun of Elon Musk and Doge, but it does tell you that there are a lot of people on the government payroll who probably aren't doing a whole lot of work, and we're not feeling the fact that they're out of work.
I've seen this one woman in particular. She stays with me. She said, she'd make about 80,000, something like that, and she's been off for about 3 weeks. She's going to the food pantry. She's saying that my whole life is destroyed. I have to feed this one and feed that one. You tell me if you're making 80 grand, which is not a king's ransom in New York, especially, but if you're making 80 grand in the Midwest somewhere, or maybe even somewhere else, you tell me that you haven't accrued some money that, just a 3 week shutdown is not going to affect you that badly. But you would think that this woman was being deprived of everything. And that's how people feel about their food stamps.
Yeah, listen, I've been out of work for a year.
And you're
Until
feeling it, right?
the money flowed in from this podcast, I was really up against it.
Well, it's coming in fast and furious.
You know
I
it.
can't I can't tell I can't tell you.
Look, I mean, people have to be responsible for their livelihood. I worked hard and I saved money, and then I got laid off at WOR from my art. But okay, I had invested and saved my entire life. I did not squander it. So yeah, so I'm fine. I can't complain about anything. I'm sort of happily semi-retired right now. But people do have to take responsibility for their own decisions in life. Now, that said, do we want people living homelessly? Do we want people turning to drugs and alcohol and all that stuff? No, of course not. I do believe that there should be a fundamental safety net. But I do think, and this is where Republicans, I think, can make some inroads. A safety net has to be structured so that you are not going to fall to the morass, but
Hmm.
we can hold you here, but you have to find a job. You have to work.
It's a
And
temporary fix.
exactly, exactly. But also, I do believe, and this is probably the Mamdani in me. I do think
Mm.
that the government needs to employ its resources to helping people find jobs. I do believe in that. I do believe that people should be. People are going to lose jobs. People are going to lose their way in life, and we don't want a society where we just cast those people to the curb, right? But you cannot just stick people on the dole and let them stay on the dole. They have to become productive members of society. And I do believe that kind of investment in let's get people off drugs, let's get people off the streets, let's train them for jobs, that is a very good way to spend our money. A good way to spend the money is not no rent or freezing the rent. Because as you know, Ralph, in New York, all those middle class landlords, if they can't make the money to pay the bills, they will abandon the buildings.
Oh yeah.
They will.
And there's no incentive to work if generation after generation are on the dole. And also, if you're behind someone with a food card, here's the scenario that I've seen many times, Michael. I have my, my chicken, I have my vegetables, my fruit, so on. They have their chips. This is not in all cases, but they have their chips, they have their cakes and their cookies. They're allowed to buy soda, allowed to buy all this junk with the food stamps. That's wrong. You should have to buy nutritious food with the food stamps, don't you think?
Well, see, now we're getting in.
Maybe throw in, something, but not all chips and cookies and cakes. No?
Yeah, well, but see, now you're going down the path of you, Ralph Romeo, want to determine what people put into their mouth,
All
what they
right.
eat. And, you're going down the path of I am smarter than you. I am better than you. I am more educated than you. And I should tell you how to live. I fundamentally resist that. But
With
what I
your own, but Michael, 1 second, with your own money though. If you're dishing out your money, you should be able to do what you want to do with it. But if you're getting government assistance, shouldn't there be guidelines? Go ahead, Adi. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right. But all right. So the guidelines are going to be. Some people would say that they might be a little bit fascistic. What are you going to have? You're going to have the lady at the checkout counter saying, "Oh no, you look a little overweight to me. You can't have those potato chips. Go buy a cucumber." I mean,
It's
who's
hard.
who's who's going to police this? Who's going to do it? What I do say is that there are consequences for the decisions you make. So if you choose to eat that kind of food, if you choose not to exercise, if you choose to be unhealthy, then I'm sorry, but there should not be a healthcare system to support you. You have to live with your diseases, live with your problems, and probably die off early.
Yeah. And that's a choice, a personal choice. But again, if you're getting money to fund your early demise, if you want to put it that way, it just bothers me to the point where I don't know how you would enforce something like that. I don't know how you would go about your doing something like that, but I've seen it time and time again where first of all, the people that are poor are obese. Now, why are they obese? Maybe the junk that they eat, they can't afford good food because it's more expensive. Maybe they have a point. But the poor in this country don't appear to be the same as the poor in Ethiopia. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Ralph, I dare say the poor in Ethiopia, there's no chance for them to have any potato chips because they have no food whatsoever. They're
That's what
lucky
I
to
mean.
dig up roots. Do you want to send the poor in this country just to some barren place where all they can eat is grass?
No, I'm saying that poor in this country is a TV, is a big screen TV, sometimes a cell phone. and all the food you want with the SNAP program. That's and all the junk food you want with the SNAP program, and all the soda you want with the
Well,
SNAP program.
at the risk of sounding like a communist, and you're turning me one into very quickly here, if they're watching their big screen TV, who's telling them to eat that stuff? Have you seen the advertisements on TV? I mean,
Yeah.
the great food industry that that produces potato chips and Doritos and all that everything you see on television, if you watch the mainstream popular shows that, your theoretical poor fat person is watching, every advertising that person sees is go to Popeyes and buy chicken, order Domino's pizza. That's what they're seeing. So, I mean, I don't know the solution to that. I don't know if there is a solution to that. Would it be in the Ralph and the Romeo and Riedel world where you and I are the dictators? We're enlightened fascists, and we can tell people how to live. We can say, you know what, darling, have a celery stick and not a potato chip. Yes, that would probably be a wonderful world, but that's not the way it works, because we know when you have people with that kind of power, it leads to 6 million Jews being thrown into ovens by Adolf Hitler, or as I heard today, because it's I heard on NPR, the commie station, something about Stalin today. It's an anniversary of when he killed 20,000 people and just massacred.
Mm.
Because ultimately, Ralph, people will, you and I can set the parameters, right? We can
Hmm.
say, this is how you have to behave. And we know this from our lives, our experience, our intelligence. We've lived our lives this way. If you live your life the way we have lived it, you will be fine. But what happens if they veer off here or there? What do you and I do as the enlightened fascists? Do we say, do we spank them? Do we get them back in line? Do we hit them? Do we have little re-education camps to make them think the way we think? How do you tell people to think the way you think without totalitarianism?
I get you. I'm a libertarian at heart, for the most part. No government regulation is ridiculous. These hardcore people, they think that we can go on with no regulation. They're silly, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty much from the same school that you're coming from. But I would say if this is your money to spend, it's an entirely different story as opposed to being on government assistance. That's the only time that we disagree with that. And as far as nutrition goes, RFK Jr., who looks tremendous for 70 some odd years old, it's all well and good, but he's really a strange bird with a sordid past. And that's saying the
You
least.
are
Because
very kind, very
if I
kind.
delved into his past right now, Michael, you'd be shocked what I could unfold. But man, oh man, but he's not. He has no background in nutrition, no background, no medical background, no nutrition knowledge of any kind. Not really. Never gone to school for nutrition, but yet he's reversing the whole thing on what we should be eating and what's unhealthy. And for example, cholesterol. He's talking like there's no such thing as saturated fat being terrible for your health. It's perfectly fine. You could eat all the meat you want because he prefers a high protein, all meat diet, very few vegetables, so on and so forth. What do you think about RFK Jr. running the show with his credentials?
The man is a total and complete idiot, and he should
Oh
not be.
wow! All right,
No, he should
I was being halfway
No,
nice. Go
he's
ahead.
a total and complete idiot. And what, and this is where I have to say this is Trump's failing. Trump has many good things, but this is where he fails. Trump hated so much the um, uh, Fauci healthcare world of you have to wear a mask until I tell you you can't wear a mask. You can't leave your house until I tell you you can't leave your house. Trump instinctively rebelled against that, but he was harnessed because of the COVID virus. He had tremendous resentment for people like Fauci and Andrew Cuomo, who loved to tell us how to live. And in Trump's mind, he thought, how can I stick it to those people? How can I stick it to the Anthony Fauci's of the world? I'll appoint RFK Jr. as my health commissar. That's the way Trump's mind works. He appointed an idiot. He appointed a person who should not be in that job, but he thought, I'm going to give the middle finger to the Faucis of the world by appointing him. Now,
Yeah, guy. Yeah, go ahead.
I just guarantee you, Donald Trump had all the vaccines you have to have. He's not an
Mm.
anti-vaccinator whatsoever, but he just wanted to stick it to the establishment that was sticking it to him by putting someone in power who they absolutely hate and despise. That is Donald Trump's mentality.
You think Trump had about 6 or 7 boosters? You think
Oh, well,
so?
yeah, I'm sure he had the polio shot and the measles shot and the mumps
Oh,
shot.
well, that, yes. But you think he had COVID boosters, like Len Berman? Because Berman had a booster every other day.
I
I
know.
remember. I just happen to remember that.
Every time I did the show with Len, he had his arm, he had his sleeve rolled up. I mean, it was like,
He would say, he would say, I just had my booster. I'm about to get my next booster on
I can't wait.
Wednesday. Ay,
But it
ay,
was,
ay.
Trump rebelled against that mentality, and that was it. And I really do think he picked RFK Jr., who's an idiot, who should not be in that job. He picked it as the big finger to the Fauci establishment. But that's
Well,
Trump's thing. Trump can't help himself. He wants that kind of revenge on people. His
just the
revenge.
fact that he sounds like Katharine Hepburn, let's not put him down too much because he's
Well,
got
I
that
think he's some sort
terrible
of.
disease.
Oh yeah.
But here's the thing about him. He looks great. They have videos of him working out. He has a very well-defined upper body for a 70-year-old, for any age, actually. But he does not tell you the testosterone that he's running through his veins, the growth hormone that he's running through his veins. He very, I guess, conveniently discards that fact. Have you seen those videos? He's pretty impressive.
Uh, no, I mean, I don't understand why these people like him and also the Cuomo dynasty, they always want to show you weightlifting. I don't want to see my leaders and my politicians weightlifting. I
I
don't
don't
care
blame
what
you.
they do at the gym. I don't need to see it. Remember when Chris Cuomo, would run around on his TikTok
Oh yeah.
videos showing how much he was weightlifting, this, that, and the other thing? No, I'm not interested in his weightlifting. I'm interested in the fact that Trump appointed a moron to run our health department, and Trump should get rid of him and hire somebody else who's a sensible person. Trump really should talk to whoever Ron DeSantis hired during COVID to run the health department in Florida. He should hire someone like him. That's a sensible person. I can't think of the name who that person was, but that person looked at the COVID numbers, looked at what COVID really was, and said, you don't have to wreck an economy. You don't have to ruin people's lives. We can find a halfway point here where people can be safe, older people, people with the underlying conditions, but young people for whom it's going to be a cold can go on with their lives. See that, I was down here, Florida, in Florida, Ralph, during COVID. I was doing the radio show from down here. I had to pretend I was in New York, but I was down here.
Hmm.
And DeSantis to me struck the right note. It was absolutely perfect. Having gone from New York City, where Andrew Cuomo was telling you when you could have breakfast, to Ron DeSantis saying life has to go on. We are all not going to die. Yes, this is a pandemic, but the more we learn about it, the more we learn that these are the people who are vulnerable. These are the people who can go on with life. He kept the place open. And one reason why I like Florida so much is because when my wife and I came down here during COVID, we felt the oppression of government had been lifted off our shoulders.
Mm, sure.
We could go out to a restaurant. We could talk to people. We could see people. And we did not get, I guess we both got COVID here and there, but we did not get COVID the way we would have gotten it in New York City by, being cooped up all the time. That to me is the fundamental difference between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats want complete and total control over your life because they think they know better than you. Republicans say, here are the risks of life. If you choose to take them, and you should, there are great rewards, but there are also failures, and you have to live and learn from the failures.
Ironically, the bigwigs would sit in restaurants during the throes of COVID,
Yeah.
and the everybody else had to be locked behind doors. But of course, the muckety mucks were out there having their normal dinners in restaurants. You saw how they opened the restaurants just for
Gavin Governor Gavin
yeah,
Newsom at the
Gavin
French Laundry.
Newsom.
Yeah.
Yeah, case in point. Okay,
But
we
but
have to do a yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say that goes to my point that people like Gavin Newsom are the elites and they think they know better than you and I do. And they want to tell us how to live our lives. And they want to live their life on a different kind of level because they're just smarter than we are.
They scared the wits out of healthy people during COVID.
Yeah.
I was relatively healthy. I said, "Oh my gosh, is it as bad as they're saying? I mean, could it be that if I breathe the same air as that person next door, even outdoors, I have to wear a mask?" It was pretty absurd.
Yeah.
But we have to do a Cindy segment because my wife wants to add she wants a video. This is what we were saying before of an ex-Muslim saying that the Islamic people were leaning left because they are easy to control. He said that the ones on the right are harder to fool and harder to control. That's why Mamdani, who was originally something else, is now a Democrat. Any thoughts?
I'm not quite following that line of thinking there.
Meaning
You,
that that Islam, although they'll throw a gay person off the ledge, I'm just adding my 2 cents to this one. They'll maybe burn them at the stake. Yet they lean Democrat where it's but the Democrats are so hypocritical because they know these things that the really intense Muslim faith will have people do or throw them off rooftops, but yet they side with the Democrats because the Democrats are the controlling party, and they would be hard pressed to control people on the right.
I don't want to make generalizations, but I would say that I'm sure there are a number of Muslims who are voting for Donald Trump and Republicans because a lot of Muslim hardworking immigrants are conservative, who have put the time in to work their way out of nothing, who have left countries where their people have been slaughtered and killed, and have come to New York City and made, I have to say, wonderful enclaves of hardworking immigrants. So no, I don't want to tar every people with the brush, if I can use that expression, which I will be canceled for that. But that's what took us.
Hard people with a brush.
Remember
Okay.
that tar people with a brush? Yeah,
Yes,
that was.
I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'll be canceled for that too. So yeah, took us and tar people with a brush. But
Al Jolson comes to mind.
completely, yeah. So I spend some time in the Middle East. I have, and I'm an atheist, but I have tremendous respect for the Islamic religion, the best parts of it, not the jihadist parts, not the parts that lead to the attack on the World Trade Center, but the part where people welcome you, whatever your faith is, into their homes. They make you some of the best food you will ever have in your life.
That's true.
And they come here fleeing countries that Ralph, you and I cannot imagine,
Yeah,
oppression that you and I cannot imagine. And they've come to New York and they have made their way and they've made wonderful, wonderful neighborhoods, wonderful places where they're not terrorists. I never once thought, and I have to hand this up to George Bush, uh, our president during 9/11. One of the first things he did after the attack on the World Trade Center, he went to a mosque. He went and he gave a speech at a mosque because he was saying, we Americans, we do not hate people of the Muslim faith. We all have people of our faiths who do terrible things. If you're a Christian fundamentalist, how do you embrace the Christian fundamentalists who blow up abortion clinics? You can't. But I thought that was the best of America, the best of what we are in this country when a horrible thing happened to us and our president went to a mosque and said, we know, we Christians, we atheists, we Jews, we know that what has happened here does not represent who you are, your faith, your beliefs. You're as American as the rest of us are, and we're all mourning now. And there were Muslims who were working in those offices at Cantor Fitzgerald and the other places who were killed by Muslims who did not represent the way those people killed believed life should be led.
The prime example is Iran, where the people want to be free for the most part.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
government, the despotic government, is a whole different story.
Yeah. Yes, and I would, I would encourage Donald Trump to foment the embers of freedom everywhere by being. Listen, Ronald Reagan did it. Lech Walesa did it. Pope John Paul II did it. During when the Iron Curtain had descended upon the continent, it was Reagan. It was the Pope. It was Lech Walesa. It was Margaret Thatcher. Who we can't have a nuclear war to save you, but freedom is a good thing. To allow yourselves to live the life that you choose to live is a good thing, and we can, through our voices, support you. And I do believe, I mean, I thought, listen, I'm so old, but when the Pope went to Poland and met Lech Walesa, that was a turning point in the history of the world.
It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
The one mistake that we made, we wanted to bring democracy to places where they had no idea of anything that we do here was so far removed from their ways. I thought it was a mistake. Sometimes you just have to use some common sense. You can't convert everyone.
No, again, just to go back to the theme of this podcast today, that was again I talked about the arrogance of the left that, we know the right way to live. Well, there's a lot of arrogance on the neoconservative side. We can impose our way of life on you. That was arrogant and that was wrong. And that was a gigantic failure of the Bush administration. And I speak as somebody who was in favor of the Iraq war at the time. But over the years, as I've read more and learned about it, you're absolutely right. It was a fundamental mistake for us to think that we can impose upon other people our way of life.
And also, the weapons of mass destruction was probably not really a true search. Like
No,
I thought that, they needed a reason to do what they did.
we listen to people whose their right idea was to depose a dictator, Saddam Hussein. But in order to depose him, they made up the facts. They made up they told lies, and we were so eager to believe those lies that we fell for them. See, that's the
By the way, I said last week that Barack Obama paved the swimming pool to build tennis courts. I was wrong. It's a basketball court. Basketball court. Obama, he was really digging basketball. That's
he
his
was
thing.
yeah.
He had a good jump shot for a president, all those things. Now, the ballroom is still getting a ton of attention because it's supposed to be so garish. So I thought it was a relatively small project, but you set me straight. You said it's the whole wing or whatever it is there. What have you heard anything about the ballroom in since the week we haven't spoke?
Look, I mean, I don't really give a crap if there's a
I don't
ballroom.
give a hoot either about that.
I really don't. I mean, I've never been to the White House. I'll never be invited to the White House. I don't really care. All I can say is that, Trump's probably right. The fact that if you have a big gathering of 600 people, don't put them in tents. All right. The
Intense. That's right.
White House should have a ballroom where you can put in 600 people. That's fine.
But
This whole reminiscing of, oh my gosh, Rosalind Carter had her office there above the East Wing. I mean, Rosalind Carter, her husband was one of the worst presidents on the planet. We're nostalgic for Rosalind Carter and her little mini oval office above the East Wing. Who the F cares, Ralph?
you
But
could say fuck. You could say fuck. Spice it up.
who the
But
fuck cares where Rosalind Carter's office was? Jesus. I read in the New York Times.
guess who the go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
The front page of the New York Times, like Rosalind Carter, she had her office there. I thought her husband, her husband couldn't handle Iran. All right, her husband couldn't handle inflation. And the New York Times, you're nostalgic for the fact that Rosalind Carter had her office over there and now it's gone. Please
Take a guess who the president was that did the most work on the White House, spent the most money. Guess.
Jefferson, Truman.
Boy, did you go back? No, a little bit. Harry Truman.
Truman, yeah. He put in the portico, right?
He put in that and many other things, I found out.
Yeah. Listen, yeah, I don't really care. Yeah,
And he
give Trump.
walked to work every day, but he really did a job on the White House.
I think yeah, he did. And the portico looks fine. And yeah, listen, it's Trump. What do we expect? It's going to be garish. And I do not want to go to a state dinner there because I'm going to be served a cheeseburger. And you and I know, actually, Trump should have all those welfare people you were talking about there because he eats the same way they do. He
How
is
does he
This is why they
survive?
voted for him. This is why, Ralph, you hit on something. This is why they voted for him. Because if you're on food stamps, you eat the way Donald Trump does. That's why they voted for him. Ralph, I've never heard such political insight before from you. That's it
I know
exactly.
that's my glowing moment. It really was my glowing moment. Do you eat junk? Do you eat well? How do you eat?
Um,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I didn't
I
get a
eat.
quick response on this one.
I am an old-fashioned kid. I do the 5 fruits and veggies a day and one protein.
One protein? One
Yeah,
protein meal?
yeah,
Wow.
well, yeah, yeah, but I'm not afraid of steak. I'm not afraid of a hamburger. I love fish. I love shellfish. Love chicken. But when I get up in the morning, I have usually an apple or a pear. For lunch, I usually have some sort of vegetable soup, and then for dinner, I have a weakness for guacamole and chips for my appetizer, and then I do a rare steak. I do a good chicken with some garlic on it that I know how to saute very well. With a salad, always a salad with tomatoes, onions. I throw in some olives, slice up a cucumber, and yeah, that's my diet.
When you eat out, I know you do often, right? Do you go out to eat?
When I had a job, I did, but now
That's true. It's very expensive.
I have cheeseburgers. But yeah, no, when
Now fast food actually costs an arm and a leg.
I know when I eat out, I always have a salad with dressing on the side, always on the side,
Yes.
so I can
Yep.
control that. And then I know there's a lot of butter and everything, but I do try to pick the healthier option on the menu. Often,
And
if I don't,
how about your exercise program? Are you doing what RFK Jr. says to do? Are you lifting some heavy weights?
well, I was going to the gym every day. I'm down in Florida now, so there's no gym here, but my wife and I are going to be bike riding. So I've been doing the upper arm stuff with the gym with the free weights. I can't do that weightlifting that you guys do. I find that boring, but I like the free weights and then the movement and you got to do a burpee and then you got to lift a weight here and there and
Oh,
do the row.
you do that thing where
A lot
you're
of Jewish
doing some
exercise.
cardio, doing some resistance, cardio resistance back and forth.
Yeah, it's called Tabata, which I thought is
Tabata.
yeah, the exercise for Jews because it sounds like a Jewish exercise.
Tabata sounds like the thing you go down in the snow, down the mountain, toboggan.
Right. Or
But
it's
you,
yeah. But no,
but
so
okay,
that
but you train every day.
I wouldn't say train, Ralph. I mean, you're the
You
physical
work
fit.
out every day.
I do. I do something every day. Yeah. And we're down in
Okay.
Florida, so we're going to be riding our bikes. We do a 13-mile bike ride every afternoon, which is nice. Or I go to the pool and I do 50 laps.
You're gonna dress up, go trick or treating.
Um, oh, I forgot about that. It is Halloween. See, what I used to able to do in New York when I was in the apartment, I would just close the door and turn off the lights. And if the kids would come, they wouldn't know anyone was home. But now I'm down here in a house. We have to have the lights on. Ooh,
See
that's
the
I
Scrooge.
told
I got the Scrooge of Halloween here.
I know. I'm gonna tell my wife, close the shades, turn off the lights, hide under the kitchen table. We'll eat there.
My
But
my
the
mother,
thing about
my mother
the
would check every piece of candy that I got during Halloween. Go ahead.
oh yeah, because they thought there were razor blades in the
The
apple.
razor blades and the apples.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And poison in the in the caramel apples. But
Oh yeah. My
yeah,
mother would not, even the wrapped up Milky Ways, Three Musketeers, we'd lay them out on the bed. First of all, I had to wear a jacket over my costume. And I'd say, Ma, why are you making me wear a jacket? This beautiful costume. It's cold outside. It's very cold outside, she would say. And then I'd come home with a big bag of candy, Michael, lay it out on the bed, and she said, "You can't eat this," which is maybe almost all of it, and then maybe I had 3 or 4 candy bars on this side.
do you remember when you were trick or treating that somebody would give you not the sweets, not the candy, but they would give you a piece of fruit, and you thought,
Yes.
"Oh my god, how pathetic are those people?"
Yes. And then candy corn was my favorite. Actually, when I was a kid, I loved candy corn, but
Wow.
now I can't stomach it.
No, it's horrible, all that stuff.
Cindy loves candy corn. She yells from the other room. She loves candy corn. She
But
never grew up.
but I think your mom was onto something. She took away all the stuff that was bad for you, and that's why to this day, Ralph, you are still able to sit on your tuchus.
She thought they were drugged. She thought they were poison. That was
Of
the thing.
course, it was 70s paranoia. You have to remember the 70s was an era of paranoia coming out of Watergate. Everybody thought the government was up to no good. Everybody thought everybody was a serial killer. I mean, what was the 70s? The 70s was Ted Bundy and Charles Manson and John Wayne Gacy. So everybody was putting razor blades in apples. You were going to your neighbors, and my mother was inspecting the apple. Do you really think Mrs. Mildred Miller down the street is putting a razor blade in an apple just because she lives alone? Her husband died in the Vietnam War. She's a widow. She's not a killer.
You never know. You never know.
That's
The quiet ones you have to watch. Anything we didn't talk about you want to touch on?
um I gotta tell you, Florida is very inviting. If Mamdani is elected, as I think he will be, and if he can convince Kathy Hochul, who he might be able to, because she has to look out for her left wing flank there, because they're coming on strong. If he can convince her even to jack up taxes a bit, this unemployed, old, washed up radio host who's got to start tapping into his retirement in about 6 months when he's 59 and a half is not giving that money to New York City or New York State.
Oh, the big 6-0 is coming.
Yep, it's coming. Yep,
That's a big deal.
yep. And I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to be 6-0 when the weather is beautiful and I'm looking out my window and I can go for a bike ride than it is when the weather sucks in January and February in New York.
Well, I'm the youngest guy in the neighborhood, actually, and that goes to show where we. What did you say, hon? The last thing you said, I didn't get it. That's why we. Who's Kathy? Oh, okay. She says she has a conspiracy theory that Hochul is going to have an affair with Mamdani, one or the other. It's very interesting, very interesting. Anyway, Michael, but hey, Florida looks pretty good to me too. I may never come back.
Well, you moved down there, right? That's where
Yeah, but
you're
I mean, nothing's permanent in our lives here. We never know where we're going to end up in 5 years.
Well, ultimately, no, we all know where we're going to end up, so we might as well enjoy the ride on the way to the grave.
I didn't think of that permanency that you're talking about. Now you went too far. I
I But
well, yeah,
as I approach late middle age, I'd rather have more of the sun in my life than not.
yes, yes. Well, Michael, it's been great.
Okay, Ralph, you take care.
Have yourself a ball in Florida. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll still be down here next week. So
Okay.
live from Florida, it's Ralph and Michael.
Take it easy.
Bye bye. You take care.
Bye.